Here's what is so wonderful about Jesus. Unlike other religions' view of God's where God's far away and he's never been here. And God just says, fear not. That's easy for you to say. In heaven, getting worshiped by the angels. That's really different than living here on the earth as a sinner in a crooked, fallen world with a bunch of people you can't depend on. And our God comes in human history. God becomes a man. His name is Jesus. And Hebrews says, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with us in our weakness because he's been here, he gets it, he knows it, he feels it. Great. So when Jesus is talking about fear and anxiety, who could possibly have greater fears available to them than Jesus? Jesus is going to go to the cross and atone for the sin of the world and endure the wrath of the Father. Jesus does have some difficulty, some distress. And he works this through with the Father like we have to work it through with the Father. That's why in the Garden of Gethsemane, he is literally sweating drops of blood as he's anticipating his own execution and murder. Right, when Jesus says, fear not, he understands what it's like to suffer physically. He understands what it's like to die. He understands what it's like to have people malign your reputation. He knows what it's like to have your family think you're crazy or disown you or turn their back on you. He knows what it's like to have friends you can't depend on because his were all asleep in the garden when he needed them the most. He knows what it's like to have someone you love sabotage their own life, steal from you, betray you, and kill themselves. His name was Judas, and Jesus loved him and served him. Jesus knows what it's like to be single and alone, and he's at this point broke and homeless, heading toward the cross. So isn't it wonderful that Jesus isn't just another religious guy with a cushy, comfy life, giving us principles that he himself has no need of. That's not our Jesus. Don't you love this Jesus? So when he says, fear not, okay, you understand. And you're not just giving me something to do. You're trying to lead me in a new way of life that's good for me because you love me. That's our Jesus. And Jesus is going to go a direction that I would have never expected. Like I said, I've read a stack of books as tall as me on adrenaline, stress, anxiety, the psychological, sociological, philosophical, biological, theological aspects of fear and anxiety. And not one of them has gone where Jesus is going to go. Jesus is going to go a completely different direction. Every book I've read, it's about paying attention to yourself, getting to know yourself, loving yourself, taking care of yourself. And you know what? To some degree, you need to be a good steward of your body and a good steward of your life. But what Jesus does, he redirects all of our focus away from ourselves. And he says, you know what part of the problem is? If all you ever do is think about yourself, you're going to end up with fear and anxiety. And if you start thinking about your Father and those in need, it'll completely alter the way you face your life. See, part of the problem is, if I worship me, then learning to worship me better only makes me more fearful and anxious. That's where Luther says that sin is ultimately the self turning in on the self. And repentance is, what about God and other people?